again at SuperWoman Talk Show. So we woke up to a new government, a new Prime Minister. Actually, not very new Prime Minister. He's quite old, but a quite new Malaysia, a completely new Malaysia. So I'm here today with Arisha Rozaidi.
Hello.
So Arisha, will you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Arisha Rozaidi. I am an English literature major here in University of Malaya. I'm also a published author of 3 books and also currently a part-time makeup artist.
Interesting. So Arisha, you tell us that you are a poet, right?
I'm a poet.
So you sure have a lot of creativity inside you. So you see with Malaysia coming out with a new policy, a freedom of speech, a freedom of express. So what do you think about freedom of speech, getting a new breath?
I think I am very hopeful to see where Malaysia is going to go with this new policy and all that. I think all of us are. I think there is like a sigh of relief for everyone to feel like finally they can say what they want to say. Because I feel everyone knows that before this, especially before the new government, everyone knows that we didn't have the same space we do now. We didn't have the same. We had more restrictions. We had more confinements. The only things we could say are things that would only benefit the people in power. We couldn't exactly say. We couldn't exactly criticize who we wanted to criticize. We couldn't say what we wanted to say. So I think I'm really looking forward to see where this takes us.
True. Would you see the freedom of speech is actually a threat or dangerous to the society?
Oh, of course not. Of course not at all. Because I feel like whoever feels that way doesn't have enough faith in the rakyat. That's the problem. Like if you think that way, then do you not trust your rakyat to have the ability, to make smarter decisions? Because even if there's freedom of speech and you're exposed to all of these new ideas, these new perspectives, don't you have faith that your rakyat will know what's bad and what's good and still stand their ground?
True. I also read somewhere that actually freedom of speech give you more platform to actually share hatred.
Oh, okay.
Share rude things just because on the platform of freedom of speech. So what about that?
I understand why some people would think that way, because I think people think that way because the people who are rude have always misused the term freedom of speech as an excuse for why they're rude, which is unfair. I know there's a really thin line between what's rude and what's freedom of speech, but I think if we exercise more freedom of speech, more freedom of expression, I think we will be able to learn more and realize and be able to learn how to openly discuss things maturely, accept opinions openly, have great discussions without having to be rude to each other, without having to attack each other and things like that,
You mentioned about maturity. Actually, it's very concerning about Malaysian citizens. Actually, they mature enough about freedom of speech. Are they actually mature enough about media literacy? Because actually Malaysians are very not quite media literate. So it's actually very dangerous because of freedom of speech, because you can actually spread false news without people knowing is it false or not. So
okay, but the thing is that, don't you think even without freedom of speech, these things are also going around already? So shouldn't there be space for people to criticize that, People are able to criticize that more if there is freedom of speech. You have more space to believe that your opinion will matter. So I think that when it comes to these things like maturity and all that, the only reason why we don't have faith in our own rakyat is because we're not used to it yet. We're not used to having so much space to express ourselves. Exactly. So I think in time, the rakyat will learn to be more, tech savvy, to know what to say and what not to say. Because let's be honest, when we were younger and when we first started out on social media, we would like tweet anything we want to say, right?
True.
We would say anything we want to say.
Scared.
Exactly, without any fear. But after some time, after you get used to the crowd, after you know how people are going to react, you learn by yourself, what you should say, what you should not say. I think freedom of speech does not only teaches people to be themselves more, but it also teaches people to be more self-aware, to be more aware about how they say things, not only what they should say,
And also you mentioned about young, right? So Arisha, you are young, well, not prominently young, but quite young, and you're also a female. So both of them are quite in the lower hierarchy of the society, obviously. And so let's come with the young first. So you are young, and people will say that just because you're young, you didn't know much stuff. Like Malay said, like you tak makan garam, cukup. So being a young person, do you actually feel you have a lot of criticize? Do you actually, before the new government, do you actually have a lot to say?
Actually, like I think I'm actually very, how do I say this? I think a lot of people think that way about younger people, but actually, if you are brave enough to actually just voice out your own opinions, you will realize that you can have a support system of people who have faith in the young generation,
Yeah.
Not every old person hates the young generation and wants to be against you, So I have learned in my, years of making new friends and being especially in the writing industry, I have gained support from like writers much older than I am who want to, help me out in this world and all that. So you don't exactly feel like, they don't actually, I call it, condescend you for just your age. So I think a lot of younger people actually fear that, a lot of younger people actually fear what if older people think this way about them. But to be honest, once you actually get out there, once you actually meet people, once you actually make friends, you will realize that there are a lot of people out there who are mature enough to know that maturity is not based on
By
age.
age,
Yeah.
exactly.
So I think sometimes the only thing stopping younger people from actually going out there is themselves. Because there will be some criticism and all that, but I have faith in the millennials. I have faith they could break free.
Because turn out from the election recently, a lot of percentage of youngsters actually go out voting and vote for the oldest prime minister in the world. So it's a very interesting relation right there within the youngsters and also the old people. So I have another question for you, but before that, let's stop for a while and we'll continue right now. We're back here in SuperWoman shows with Arisha Rozaidi.
Hello.
So Arisha, we'll stop at talking about young voters. Young voters voting the old people. Because our lineup are very vibrant faces, but safe to say it's a very quiet old faces in the same time.
I'm pretty sure 93 isn't young.
Yeah, true. So talking about young voters, there's rumors that they want to, not rumors, one of the manifesto actually, they want to lower the age of voting to 18 because currently you are 21 and I'm aware that you are not eligible to vote because
I'm not.
you just reached your birthday, right?
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Is that necessary? I mean,
thank you.
Everything is always necessary, people. So, Arisha couldn't vote because she's underage apparently, but she have a lot to say apparently also. So, but talking about lowering age at 18 years old, do you think actually Malaysians are mature enough to vote at the age of 18?
I feel like a lot of people have a lot to say about people voting at 18, and the first argument is people aren't mature enough to vote. Then are you trying to say that 15-year-old girls are mature enough to be married and 15-year-old girls are mature enough to have children, And it doesn't make sense to me because I am sure that, especially with the recent election, people my age and people 20 years old, 19 years old felt just as much as people who were able to vote felt, I feel like if you want to strip away the right of like an 18-year-old citizen to vote for next 5 years at least, right, until they reach 23, then what about the people who are like 100 years old, who are like counting their days, Why should people that age should be eligible to vote?
Because,
decide for 5 years to come,
not saying bad things,
but
100 years old, honey, you can anytime.
And even if it's not about death, it's about how much longer do you have to live in Malaysia, which is with its policies, Like at 18 years old, not being able to vote, but then you have to live 5 years with policies that affect you, especially once you're going into the workforce and, you're growing older. And this is a very crucial time because, to be honest, I feel like the young vote also counts because
it counts a
the
lot.
the young representation matters in governance also,
Yeah, we also have a lot of young faces in the parliament as well.
Yeah.
We have the youngest MB.
Yeah, we have Prakabaran,
Prakabaran, 22 years old. Arisha gave an analogy of people getting married at 15 years old because that's actually our eligible age to get married. And actually, one of actually a very interesting analogy is actually youngsters can ride at the age of 16 and can drive at the age of 17.
Exactly.
Where driving and riding is actually putting your life and
Exactly.
other people's life at risk.
Exactly.
You have to take responsibility of
Exactly.
life, but you cannot vote.
Exactly.
Because you are not mature
How come you're allowing 16-year-olds to be married and raise children, but then you want to bring up the same argument? If you want to bring up the same argument, then be consistent. Then don't let 15-year-olds who want to continue with school be forced into getting married and stuff like that. You know, it's so unfair. But I really feel like mostly it's just because the young voice is very, very loud and really needs to be heard. Like, how come people like Prakabaran are supposed to be running for seats when it is also his first time trying to vote, you know?
And without any party inside.
Exactly. I feel like I know a lot of people
He's a free candidate.
I know a lot of people are very paranoid, are very scared about what the future will look like once the voting age gets reduced to 18 years old. But and people want to argue about whether kids are mature enough to vote at 18. But I think maturity will come with time. Like,
True.
I know you think that people like 18-year-olds don't talk about politics all the time, but that's because with the system, with how things are right now, they already feel like they can't talk because people are going to constantly say
So
like,
many
why do you
restrictions.
want to be so loud about politics at 18 years old when you're not allowed to vote yet? So
I actually heard that a lot, that people commenting that they saying that, oh, you are not even eligible to vote.
exactly.
Why do you have opinion?
Why do you think you should talk about
why
it?
do you have
I'm sorry, but I want to talk about my government
True.
because it affects me
Yeah.
and my friends.
I mean, you can't vote doesn't mean that you
Exactly.
cannot have your opinion.
Because policies affect everyone. So it doesn't mean that you can't talk about, doesn't mean that you can't criticize something. You're trying to, it's not only that you already restricted me from being able to actively choose my government, but now you're trying to block me from even talking about the government I didn't even choose, you know?
True.
Exactly.
You didn't even choose, you can't even voice out.
Exactly.
So I think that's all for now. Thank you so much,
Thank you
Arisa,
so much for having me.
Thank you so much. So with that, we already heard at least one of the young voice. For now, I'm looking forward to hear more of the young voices in our show. Thank you, Arisa, again. So with that, I'm Arshad Shahrudin, and see you next week.